Now I would request Professor Luis Tome, who is a director, Department of International Relations, and he's definitely the backbone behind all this conference we are arranging today between the Autonomous University and the Sanober Institute. Professor.
Thank you, Dr. Kamashima, and you are the backbone as well. So thank you, and thank you, Sanober Institute, for engaging this organization, the other distinguished speakers and participants online and here at the auditorium. Let me just share my PowerPoint. Yeah. The European Union's relations with South Asia are a key component of its broader strategy for Asia Indo-Pacific region, which has become a geopolitical priority due to its strategic, economic, and security significance. South Asia, particularly India, lies at the heart of the Indo-Pacific corridor, serving as a bridge between the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and East Africa. The EU views its connectivity with South Asia as critical to ensuring resilient supply chains, maritime security, and open sea lanes, especially through key shock points like the Indian Ocean and Strait of Hormuz. South Asia is part of the EU's efforts to diversify trade and investment relationships in Asia and Indo-Pacific, as also the EU's sustainable development and labor rights agenda. The EU leverages its relationships in South Asia to promote climate action, democratic governance, and human rights, values at the core of its foreign policy and Indo-Pacific strategy. South Asian countries are recipients of EU development cooperation aimed at achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The EU is expanding maritime security collaboration in the Indian Ocean through joint exercises with South Asian navies, notably India, as well as the information sharing platforms like the Information Fusion Center Indian Ocean region. Projects like nation security cooperation in and with Asia and critical maritime routes in the Indian Ocean include South Asian nations in efforts to promote maritime domain awareness and cyber resilience. India is the EU's primary strategic partner in South Asia, with cooperation spanning trade, climate, security, and digital technologies. India is also central to EU efforts to counterbalance China's influence in the region while promoting a free, open, and rules-based order. The EU supports regional cooperation through platforms like South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation and seeks to complement other regional initiatives such as the Bay of Bengal Initiative, BIMSTEC, linking South and Southeast Asia. Engagement with South Asia supports the EU's vision for an inclusive and rules-based Asia-Indo-Pacific, resisting unilateral actions and promoting stability in fragile areas. So South Asia serves as both a strategic gateway and a critical partner in the EU's Indo-Pacific strategy. But the EU's relationship with each of the South Asian countries is, however, highly diverse, as can easily be observed in areas such as trade and security. India is the only South Asian country at the top 10 of the largest trading partners of the EU. Bangladesh ranks in the 40s, and Pakistan ranks as the 50th largest trading partner of the EU. Other South Asian countries generally rank lower in the EU's trade partner list. But the EU is a significant trading partner for the South Asian region, especially with India and Pakistan. The EU is India's largest trading partner, the second largest destination of Indian exports, and it is also one of the largest foreign investors in India. Ongoing negotiations for a free trade agreement with India are part of a broader EU's Indo-Pacific economic outreach. The EU is Pakistan's second largest trading partner, the primary destination for Pakistani exports. However, the EU is a smaller trade partner for some South Asian countries, such as Bhutan or Afghanistan. And these rankings reflect the EU's significant but varied trading relations within South Asia, with India being the most prominent trading partner in the region. Also, in terms of security, the EU has been actively enhancing its security cooperation with South Asian countries, particularly with India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. The EU and India have held multiple maritime security dialogues, focusing on countering illicit maritime activities, protecting critical infrastructure, and enhancing maritime domain awareness. Joint naval exercises have been conducted between the Indian Navy and the EU Naval Force, notably in the Gulf of Aden. The EU has proposed placing a liaison officer at India's Information Fusion Center, Indian Ocean region, to bolster information sharing and maritime security cooperation. India and the EU are exploring a comprehensive security and defense partnership, including India's potential participation in the EU's multinational defense projects. A security of information agreement is under negotiation to facilitate classified information sharing between the two parties. Under the Enhancing Security Cooperation in and with Asia project, the EU and India collaborate on cybersecurity, counterterrorism, and crisis management. Discussions are ongoing to expand cooperation into space security, reflecting mutual interests in emerging security domains. France, representing EU interests, has signed agreements with Bangladesh to provide satellite technology and facilitate infrastructure development loans. Both countries have expressed intentions to elevate their partnership to a strategic level with a focus on maritime domain awareness and non-traditional security issues. While specific recent initiatives are less documented, the EU and Pakistan have historically engaged in dialogues focusing on counterterrorism, border management, and regional stability. The EU supports Pakistan through various programs aimed at enhancing law enforcement capabilities and promoting good governance practices. And of course, there are several multilateral initiatives, such as the EU's Enhancing Security Cooperation in and with Asia project, serving as a platform for collaboration with South Asian countries on cybersecurity, counterterrorism, maritime security, and the critical maritime routes in the Indian Ocean initiative, aiming to improve maritime domain awareness and information sharing among countries in the Indo-Pacific region, including South Asia. These collaborations underscore the EU's commitment to strengthening security and defense ties with South Asian nations, addressing shared challenges, and promoting regional stability. The European Union's relations with South Asia countries are significantly influenced by its broader strategic relations with global powers such as the United States, China, and Russia. The relationships of India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan with Russia have complex historical and strategic roots, and these ties significantly influence how these South Asian countries engage with the EU. India maintains a long-standing strategic partnership with Russia, especially in defense. Almost 40% of India's military equipment originates from Russia. During the war in Ukraine, India has not condemned Russia outright, choosing instead a non-aligned strategic autonomy approach. It continues to buy Russian oil and weapons, often at a discounted rates. The EU, especially after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, expects global partners to align with its sanctions regime and condemnation of Russian aggression. India's neutrality creates strategic friction with the EU, but however, the EU values India as a counterweight to China, and it's therefore reluctant to let differences over Russia derail broader cooperation in trade, technology, climate, and security. This creates a pragmatic but cautious partnership where the EU increasingly engages India in areas not directly tied to Russia. Pakistan-Russia relations have traditionally been distant due to Cold War alliances, but recent years have seen warming ties, including Pakistan's accession to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, talks on energy deals such as gas pipelines, the Pakistan Stream Project, joint military drills and counterterrorism cooperation, and high-level visits, including former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan's controversial visit to Moscow on the day of Ukraine invasion. The EU views Pakistan's tilt toward Russia with caution, but not alarm. However, closer Pakistan-Russia ties could weaken Western leverage over time, especially if Islamabad starts relying more on Russian energy or arms. And in Afghanistan, post-2021, Russia has maintained open channels with the Taliban, even hosting delegations and providing humanitarian aid. It seeks to ensure stability and counter ISIS-K threats in Central Asia. The EU, by contrast, has not recognized the Taliban, although it has provided humanitarian assistance and maintains limited technical engagement. Russia's support of the Taliban, even if pragmatic, indirectly hinders EU goals of promoting international norms in Afghanistan. Russia's relationship with these three South Asian countries create divergent challenges for the EU. With India, the tension lies in values versus strategic pragmatism. With Pakistan, there's a concern about shifting alignments and lost leverage. With Afghanistan, Russia competes with the EU for influence, values, and principles in a fragile, strategically located state. These dynamics underscore a larger challenge for the EU, maintaining a coherent foreign policy in South Asia, while balancing support for international law, strategic partnerships, stability, and development goals. The transatlantic alliance with the United States often aligns the EU with US policies in South Asia, particularly regarding counterterrorism, democratic governance, and regional stability. This alignment can sometimes limit the EU's room for maneuver, especially in countries where the US policies are viewed with skepticism. The US has taken a stronger strategic tilt toward India, particularly under its Indo-Pacific strategy and Quad partnership, and has generally avoided harsh criticism of India. The EU, by contrast, tries to maintain a more values-based approach, raising human rights issues while engaging all sides diplomatically. This can occasionally create subtle transatlantic friction. The EU emphasizes international law and civil liberties, while the US prioritizes strategic containment of China, often sidelining human rights debates to avoid alienating India. The EU's complex relationship with China also affects its approach to South Asia. As China expands its influence in the region through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, the EU seeks to offer alternative models of cooperation based on transparency, sustainability, and rules-based governance. This can lead to both collaboration and tension with South Asian countries, depending on their strategic priorities. China-Pakistan economic corridor further complicates the EU's potential investment strategies. The EU's increasing concerns over Chinese assertivenesses in the Indo-Pacific and on its borders puts it in a delicate position. The EU avoids echoing the US line, aiming to maintain strategic autonomy. My fourth point is related with the Kashmir dispute. It complicates the EU's bilateral ties with both India and Pakistan, and adds complexity to its strategic positioning toward China. China supports Pakistan's position on Kashmir and has its own territorial claims in Ladakh and Aksai Chin, making the issue even more geopolitically complex. While the EU strives to maintain neutrality and uphold human rights, it also has to prioritize stability, trade, and long-term strategic interests. The EU has expressed concern over human rights in Indian administered Kashmir. The European Parliament, for example, has debated several resolutions critical of India's action in Kashmir, including issues like restrictions on communications, detentions of political leaders, press freedom violations. These concerns strain diplomatic relations with India, which often sees such debates as interference in internal affairs. At the same time, the EU also cautions Pakistan on cross-border terrorism and support for militant groups, maintaining a balanced, neutral stance. The India-Pakistan rivalry limits EU strategic cooperation with the region as a whole. The EU must navigate carefully to avoid appearing partial. Security cooperation, especially on counter-terrorism, is complicated by mutual suspicion between the two South Asian rivals. This rivalry also weakens regional economic integration, making it harder for the EU to support multilateral trade or infrastructure initiatives like those under the Global Gateway or regional connectivity schemes. Finally, the Kashmir diaspora in some EU states, especially of Pakistani origin, actively lobbies EU institutions, influencing political discourse and occasionally generating diplomatic friction, particularly with India. So the EU must balance democratic values and human rights advocacy with geopolitical realism. It needs India as a partner in trade, tech, and regional stability. It continues development and counter-terrorism partnerships with Pakistan. The EU's neutral rules-based posture allows it to act as a potential mediator or confidence builder. However, the EU does not appear to have sufficient political influence in Islamabad or New Delhi to play such a role. Moreover, India remains unwilling to accept third-party mediation or to multilateralize discussions regarding the Kashmir disputes. The Kashmir issue remains a low-profile but high-impact factor in shaping how assertive or cautious the EU is in the South Asia diplomacy. Finally, my last point is related with most important challenges and opportunities. The EU is working to foster institution building, democracy, good governance, and human rights, while it also has security concerns such as Kashmir conflict, Afghanistan, maritime security, and terrorism. Rising tensions between global powers, particularly the US-China rivalry and China's growing influence in South Asia, complicate the EU's diplomatic balancing act in the region. Issues such as restrictions on civil liberties, press freedom, and minority rights in countries like India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh clash with the EU's value-based foreign policy and affect trade preferences. Despite renewed talks, the EU-India Free Trade Agreement negotiations face hurdles due to differences over tariffs, intellectual property rights, and sustainability clauses. Border conflicts, terrorism, and the Taliban regime in Afghanistan pose risks to regional stability and EU investments. South Asia remains a significant source of irregular migration to the EU. Managing migration while respecting human rights is a complex policy challenge. South Asia is highly exposed to climate change impacts, but capacity to adapt and finance green transitions remains uneven, posing challenges for joint climate action. But there are major opportunities as well. Both the EU and South Asian countries like India seek to reduce overdependence on China, opening space for closer economic, technological, and security cooperation. The EU can support South Asia's digital transformation and energy transition through technology transfers, sustainable infrastructure, and climate finance. Ensuring open sea lanes and rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific aligns with both the EU and India's strategic goals, offering scope for naval cooperation and joint exercises. South Asia's young, tech-savvy population offers a vibrant market and talent pool for EU industries, particularly in IT, clean tech, and research. Projects enhancing regional connectivity, align with EU goals for sustainable development and market access. And South Asia and the EU can collaborate in forums like the United Nations, WTO, and G20 on global issues such as climate change, health security, and digital regulation. In sum, the EU's relationship with South Asia is characterized by cooperation in trade, regional stability, sustainable development, human rights, and cultural exchanges. The EU sees South Asia as a key region for economic growth, strategic partnerships, and global influence. And again, South Asia serves as both a strategic gateway and a critical partner in the EU's Asia-Indo-Pacific strategy. Thank you.